The Doll Collector by Jack Varnell. On 29, 2018, the girl was asked one day about her most unique doll collection, and she described dolls of all sorts and for all occasions. There were the ones who looked pretty like the Barbies and the Kens. There were ones that did something like Wetsy Betsy or Chatty Cathy. There were the ones that represented different times. There were the utilitarians like G.I. Joe. When she described him, she got a gleam in her eye that said she understood his appeal more than a 10-year-old girl should. A soldier will be prey one day. Some dolls were in memory of icons long gone like Elvis, Scarlet O'Hara, Lucy, and even a Charlie McCarthy ventriloquist dummy. There were the more nostalgic, like the kewpie dolls from the 50s and 60s from Coney Island. Just about every single representation of doll could be seen in her collection. The art of collecting was an incredible hobby of patience for such a young girl, but one she learned well. As she grew older, she continued the practice, and the collection grew and grew. Charming, talented, intelligent, witty, driven, and most beautiful, she became well known for her collection, and her fame and delightful appearance of well-being made her in demand. She ran from the fame somewhat because she was a little unsure of herself and abilities, but one thing remained. She was the best doll collector anyone had ever known. She moved around some to perfect the skill, to search for more conquests, and to escape the familiarity. In her path, she left scores of people who adored her, and they all wanted more, but she could only give up so much. Everybody wanted something. She took with her the pieces she wanted or needed and moved on. Success was only what it was meant to be among the collectors. The rest of the world didn't really understand anything about what made her so endearing. Those close to her and that adored her couldn't understand anything else. She was captivating. She carried the skill with her into old age. A collection that could not be comparable to anything like it was grown. She was so reliant on the doll collecting that some days it seemed that building that collection was all that mattered. Never did she really take the time to get to know anyone real. She had no real attachments to anyone in this life. All was sacrificed in the name of the collection. It was all she knew. Even her mother, who had taught her all she knew about collecting, was pushed to the wayside in reverence to the collecting. She grew old and was alone, though she had accomplished much and was well known for her collection and for excellence at her worldly accomplishments. An old woman today was asked about her collection of dolls, the most extraordinary collection ever seen, and through the rasp of a lonely old woman's voice, she described her collection. There were the parents, real and imagined, who met her needs along the way without requiring any effort on her part. If things didn't work out the way she planned, she'd just trade them for a new addition to the collection. She described the lovers along the way. She described her first husband, the father of her children. She described her second husband, a hopeless romantic whose weaknesses were many and easy to use against him when the going got rough. She described the many friends who hear from her once in a while, if only to hear her talk of herself, her world, her collection. She talked of the friends and family, real or facsimile, who stepped in to care for her children when the collecting, wanderlust, stress, or call to sow wild oats was too great. Something, her fear of familiarity, or the need to stand firm and tall caused her to run. She spoke of many who adored her, many who offered her the world but never came through to her liking because the collecting was easier than changing, or being patient with another's shortcomings, or inability to meet her standards. She was a victim if you didn't make the collection. She could be a victim to make sure you didn't. Others said there was a good chance you were the victim if you did. She told of all this through the undertone of bitterness and regret. But she also spoke with the assuredness that she knew the truth. A decision was made long ago to continue with the collecting, even though it wasn't that exciting anymore and really gave no lasting joy. It was all she knew, and the people who got close to her only drove her to focus more on the collecting. Remember, they all want to take advantage of her and her collection. The real people were too scary, untrustworthy, dishonest, and really only wanted to use her for her great collecting skills or to share in the collection. She spoke like someone who knew this decision had been made by her and her alone. And here she was, her alone. She was known for her accomplishments, but when asked, Noon could say they knew her even though she had impacted their lives more than anyone they had ever met. And they all concurred. It was her alone. Her alone with a collection that means nothing to anyone but her. And to those that knew what could have been and still like being collected.